Final update. My parents want to force me to give up my college savings to pay for my sister's apartment, but when they kick me out, they'll ruin their reputation with the family that hates them. Part 2. In the same way, they would be selfish with me and ask me to leave the house. Basically, my only two options were to help my sister and share my savings with her or be kicked out of the house. I chose the second option because, honestly, it was very humiliating for me. I never expected my parents to use the fact that I depended on them at least until I got into university against me. But I guess their priority now was my sister. I'm not sure, but I think it was because they didn't want anyone to know that our family was not doing well financially. If my sister had been honest with her friends and asked them to cover for her, she would have had to tell them everything about our financial situation. Since they're high school friends, their parents would have found out too. Those parents know my parents well, as it's a small and close-knit neighborhood. So, I suppose that's why they didn't want my sister to tell anyone what was happening. In fact, they had put a lot of effort into hiding the fact that we were going through financial problems. No one in the family even knew, except my uncle and his wife. My uncle is my dad's older brother, and since he was one of the first investors in my dad's business, of course, he is aware. Initially, my dad was even against the idea of my uncle co-signing the loan, but he finally had to accept since co-signing both my sister's and my loan applications could backfire. So, even though he didn't like the idea of being even more in debt to my uncle, he had to let me go to him for help. It wasn't even that I was going to study at a nearby university. I was going to a university in another state, so it was going to be even more expensive. Anyway, I knew that their reputation meant a lot to them, and I knew they were doing everything possible to ensure that no one found out how they were struggling. After the fight I had with my parents, I left home. I still couldn't accept the fact that they had kicked me out just because I refused to follow their rules. It was insulting and humiliating, so I decided to take advantage of the fact that their reputation and money meant so much to them. After that argument, I immediately started packing my things, and my parents didn't even make an effort to stop me. That night, I packed everything into a bag, then took a taxi and headed to my uncle's house. I felt a little guilty for constantly bothering him, but when I got there and explained the situation to him, he told me I was welcome to live with him and his wife as long as I wanted. Their kids were already adults and living independently, so now I'm staying in my cousin's room. When I left, my parents were at the door, and they didn't try to stop me. Even when my uncle called my dad to talk to him about what was going on with me, my dad made it clear that if I wasn't going to think about my family and put them first, then I had no place in their house. It was ironic that they called me selfish, but in my opinion, they were the ones who were really being selfish. For the past week, I've been living with my uncle and aunt, who have been very kind, but that still hasn't helped distract me. My uncle and aunt keep telling me that everything will be fine and that they are sure my parents will eventually come to their senses and apologize to me, but I'm not so sure anymore. Yesterday afternoon, I was feeling particularly down, and I don't know what came over me. I just decided that I needed to talk about it. But I also felt very vengeful, so instead of venting to my friends, I decided to post on Facebook and tell the whole truth. I wrote a post with every little detail of what had happened and fully exposed my parents, then hit the publish button. After that, I put my phone aside and went for a walk because I knew that as soon as my parents discovered the post, they would start blowing up my phone with calls. I hadn't blocked them anywhere so far because I expected them to reach out to me at some point, but in the past week, they hadn't even bothered to ask how I was. Anyway, when I got back to my uncle's house after my walk, about 30 minutes later, both my uncle and aunt were quite serious. They told me they had read my post and didn't think it was necessary at that moment, but since I had already posted it without even talking to them about it, the only thing I could do was apologize for not informing them. I just felt very down and wanted to get back at my parents somehow. They seemed a bit disappointed, but they didn't say much, so at least I'm okay on that front. However, when I went back to my phone, I saw that I had several missed calls and messages from my parents, just as I expected. All the messages were along the same lines. They had been right to ask me to leave the house because it was obvious that I couldn't think of anyone but myself and that I was really selfish. With this post, I proved that I was also a bad person. They were accusing me of ruining their reputation by making it seem like they were the villains here, that they had kicked me out on purpose, even though it had been my decision to leave because I preferred to abandon my family when they needed my help rather than stay and be there for them. Most of the messages were very angry, and I felt somewhat vindicated because at least now they were feeling exactly the betrayal and disappointment that I had felt during the past week.